Okay, what is the difference between Vipassana jhanas and Samatha jhanas? Is there an advantage of doing straight insight versus Samatha to Vipassana, or vice versa? You just shouldn't think about these things. I mean, I'm not criticizing you, but this is where we are, no? And so many people ask this question. I mean, is it really the most important question? We need to see the truth of reality. We have to eventually see the Four Noble Truths, and they're very clearly to do only with the experience of reality as it is. Now, how you get to that experience is the subject of a great amount of debate in modern times. Ancient commentaries don't seem to have this sort of debate. They have different ways that you can go about it. But the thing is, eventually you have to get to this point. If you want to do all sorts of mental gymnastics and get all sorts of magical powers in the meantime, then there are ways of doing that. And if you want to first explore, I mean, there's so many different ways. If you want to become a Buddha, then man, you've got your work cut out for you. If you want to become a private Buddha, then you've still got a lot of work cut out for you. Incredible amount of work. If you want to become one of the Buddha's chief disciples, like if you look at the Buddha's two chief disciples, Moggallana took 7 days to become an arahant. Sariputta took 14 days to become an arahant. So first of all, the question, why did Sariputta take longer than Moggallana? Sariputta is the most excellent in wisdom, apart from the Buddha. And then on top of that, why did both of them take longer than all of their friends? Because the friends who came with them all got enlightened right away. The Buddha taught something and boom, they all became arahants. Sitting there, listening to the Buddha talk. So why did it take longer? Because they had higher aspirations. Sariputta had exceptional aspirations. It's amazing that in 14 days he could accomplish what he did. But he came to understand reality in a very profound way. If you read the sutta that says it was seeing things one by one, he was able to go through everything, all parts of reality. But you don't really need to do all of that. So it's totally up to the individual, right? Kondanya, the Buddha's first disciple, the first person to realize the truth of the Buddha's teaching, he made a wish in a past life that he should be the first person to realize the Buddha's teaching. How did he do it? He would give away the first of everything. He gave away the first rice when it was unripe. He gave away the first rice when it was ripe on the stalk, and then he gave away the first harvest of the rice. He gave away the first threshing of the rice, the first polishing of the rice, and so on. He always gave away the first, and then he made a determination that he should therefore come to see the truth first. His brother, at the same time, ended up giving, like, at the very end, when it was all finished, he said, I'm not going to do it. But then at the end, he gave away gifts of his rice, and then he made a determination, well, then let me be the last person to realize the Buddha's teaching. And he was. He turned out to be Subhadda, who was the last person to learn the Buddha's teaching from the Buddha's own mouth. So you have to recognize the different paths. There's even a sutta that we always quote, and it's always subject of so much debate, where these guys said, we don't have magical powers, we don't have all these arupa jhanas. All we have is the basic jhanas required for attaining insight. We are panya vimutti. And so what the commentary says is, well, there's two, even the Buddha said, actually, there are two kinds of vimutti, two kinds of people who become free, the panya vimutti and the ceto vimutti. Ceto vimutti, they do samatha first and then continue on with vipassana. Panya vimutti, they do straight to vipassana. And the jhana that they get is the bare minimum. So, and the commentaries are very clear on this. There's really no controversy here, except that now people don't accept this, and they say, no, it's not. Throw out the commentaries, right, and reinterpret what the Buddha said in a new way. So you're asking me, I'm going to explain to you about this whole Samatha Jhana, Vipassana Jhana, according to the commentaries, according to my understanding. But other people will certainly disagree with me. Okay, let's talk about jhana. There are three kinds of jhana. The first kind of jhana is Samatha Jhana. The second kind of jhana is loosely called Vipassana Jhana. They have different names, but let's call them these ones for now. The third kind is called Lokuttara Jhana. And this is important. There are actually three kinds of jhana. The first kind, Samatha Jhana, is the commentary term is Aramanupani Jhanato. A person meditates on an aramana, which means an object. But here specifically it's referring to a conceptual object, the samatha object. So there are the standard 40 objects, the 10 kasinas, the 10 loathsomeness contemplations, kasinsid, asubhasid, anusatis, the 10 anusatis, the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, and so on. Then the 4 Brahmaviharas, the 4 Arupa Kamathanas, then mindfulness of the repulsiveness of eating, ahare patigula sanya, and dhatu manasikara. That's 40 altogether. Focusing on any one of these 40 or something similar is to develop Samatha Jhana. It's based on a concept, so it's something that isn't going to lead to insight directly. You can't focus on the Buddha, say, and gain insight based on thinking about the Buddha. You can't focus on a white disc and expect to gain insight just thinking of the color white. Why? Because these things are conceptual. The Buddha actually is an exception, because the Buddha is, when we think Buddha, we're thinking of the mind state. So Buddha can actually lead you to think about the mind states, and therefore you see them arising and ceasing, and can lead to insight. It doesn't actually lead to jhana. According to the commentaries, Buddha nusati, mindfulness of the Buddha, can't lead to the jhanas, because they say because the Buddha is a subject that's very deep, but also because it's dealing with mind states, and mind states aren't permanent. They're impermanent, suffering, and uncontrollable, non-self. Therefore, it can't lead to jhana. This is the key here. The only way you can enter into a samatha jhana is if you focus on something that is going to be stable. And if you're focusing on something that is stable, you'll never see impermanence, suffering, and non-self. So there's a distinction here. It's very simple, actually, and it's very clear. And if you don't listen to all these people who like to make trouble, it really makes a lot of sense. But when you start listening to them and then doubting and so on, and then if you're looking for trouble, you'll find it. Vipassana Jhana is called by the commentaries Lakhanupani Jhanato. A person meditates on the characteristics. Lakhana means characteristics. And here referring to the 3 characteristics of all phenomena. The samanya lakhana, the lakhana that are the characteristics that are common to all real things. So you're meditating here. You have jhana, but it's jhana based on reality. You're focusing on an experience, a momentary experience that is arising and then ceasing, coming and going. And you're seeing impermanence, suffering, and non-self. This jhana is necessary to become enlightened because it allows you to let go. It's the only way one can enter into nibbana. Samatha meditation, as far as, it seems so blatantly obvious that samatha meditation was practiced before the time of the Buddha. Jhana, there were people gaining jhana left, right, and center. And there are Buddhist teachers who say this is not true, which is incredible for me to think. That somehow the jhanas could be just somehow people missed this state of peace and tranquility, of worldly peace and tranquility. And the peace and tranquility that they were describing, no, that wasn't jhana, it was something else. When, in all religions, you have this kind of incredible peace and tranquility. The Hindus are experts in the jhanas. I mean, it's really a no-brainer. Jhana is just your mind becomes fixed on something, on a concept. That's samatha jhana. So what is really new is this idea of vipassana, which is very clear in the Buddhist teaching, that you're trying to see, often based on the tranquility of mind that you have that allows you to see clearly. But you're trying to see the nature of reality as being unsatisfying, as being stressful, not worth clinging to. And because you see that, then you let go. And when you let go, you're free. When you're free, you say, I'm free. So vipassana jhana leads to the third type of jhana, which is lokuttara jhana. So the reason why these monks who said that they were panya vimutti, the reason why they said they had never developed the arupa jhanas. These were arahants, these were enlightened beings who claimed to never have realized the arupa jhana, the formless jhanas, part of the samatha jhanas. And people say, well, that means they must have practiced samatha jhana, because they only say that they didn't reach the arupa jhanas. So what about the rupa jhanas, the first four of the samatha jhanas? Well, the point is that what they're saying there, the reason why they have to say that they've realized the rupa jhanas, is because everyone has to reach a jhana, a technical state of jhana. This is why this sutta is so very carefully worded to not talk about the realization of the first jhanas. Because everyone has to realize a jhana, which is the lokuttara jhana. If one enters into nibbana from the first jhana, this is the first jhana, this is the first lokuttara jhana. If one enters from the second, it's the second lokuttara jhana. Third, it's the third. Fourth, it's the fourth. If you enter from vipassana, you're entering directly into the first jhana, but you still have to, it still is called the first jhana, but it's the first lokuttara jhana. Confused? It's a bit confusing if you don't study Abhidhamma, but Abhidhamma, it lays it out quite clearly. Anyway, I mean, it's not really an important point. We practice to see clearly. I mean, you have to practice pretty intensely. I think the argument that many people would make is that people who advocate vipassana meditation aren't really meditating. And I would agree with that to an extent, that we often become lazy and intellectual, and we just sit around talking and thinking about it. And these people go off and do some pretty heavy meditation, and congratulations and good for them. We should be doing heavy meditation as well. But the point being, you can do heavy meditation and just do vipassana without doing the samatha part. I mean, there are people who became enlightened just listening to what the Buddha said, just listening to the Buddha talk. Now, did they have to do samatha meditation? And they have all these theories about what that means and how they still had to do samatha meditation or whatever. It's all ludicrous. The important thing is that you see things clearly. So the only advantage I can see of doing straight insight first is that it's probably, all things considered, a little bit quicker, because you're not worried about all the trappings. You're not worried about magical powers or the enjoyment of the pleasure of the jhanas, of tranquility. You just want to see things clearly and quickly. You know? So it could potentially be a lot quicker, because you avoid you don't have all of the other ideas that you want this, or that you want this peace and this happiness, worldly peace and happiness. You want to go for the ultimate